Good morning. I'm Kevin Walker, Senior Vice President of Public Policy for the Overland Park Chamber. This interview is being conducted on behalf of the Johnson County Public Policy Council, which is comprised of the Chambers of Commerce in Johnson County and the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. Jointly, we host a site, votejoco.com, which is a nonpartisan site where voters can learn more about the candidates for public office. This morning, we're with Congresswoman Sharice Davids, who's running for the United States House of Representatives. Congresswoman, welcome.
Hi, good morning, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing well. Love to start with having you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you've decided to run for Congress again.
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate having the opportunity to speak with you all today on a range of issues impacting our community and our country, especially as it relates to our local business community. So again, I'm Sharice Davids, representative for the 3rd District here in Kansas. One of the things that I often say is that entrepreneurship is baked into the DNA of the 3rd District. And it's because we have such a vibrant business community here, one that I consistently highlight through my work on the House Small Business Committee. And, for the past 5 months, I think we've seen just how important our small businesses are. We've seen our economy devastated by the coronavirus pandemic. And, I've continued to push for policies and programs like the Paycheck Protection Program to help our small businesses, to help them stay afloat, to pay employees, to be able to reopen their doors in a safe way. And, I think we've seen a lot of success in these relief programs. Close to 100,000 jobs in the Kansas 3rd were saved because of the various relief programs that Congress has been able to implement. We know that there were hiccups. We know that there's a lot more work that certainly I need to be doing, that the Congress needs to be doing for our small businesses, for our workers, for our families, and our healthcare system through this pandemic. And I'm going to continue to do that hard work. Since taking office, I've fought to put Kansans first, to ensure that our voices are heard out in Washington. And, I'm going to continue to do that, especially as we navigate what is such an unprecedented time and challenging time. So I'm looking forward to us getting to the questions and speaking with you. And thanks again for doing this, for the civic engagement. And I appreciate that.
Well, it's certainly our pleasure to do it. And why don't we just dive right into the questions then? And let me start with a sort of a broad one, and what you see as the top 2 or 3 business policy issues facing our country right now.
Well, that's a really important question, because I think so many of us are feeling the uncertainty of the coronavirus pandemic. I think that the top 3 policy issues are certainly dealing with the health and economic crisis because of COVID-19, getting more Kansans access to affordable quality healthcare is another piece, and then rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. I know I talk about infrastructure a lot, but those are probably the top 3 things that I would say.
Well, thank you. And, another kind of broad question is just, what are your general views on our federal tax policy?
First of all, taxes are a way for us to demonstrate our priorities. Our tax system is a reflection of our priorities. And, as someone who was raised by a single mom, she raised 3 of us by herself, I know that it makes all the difference in the world to have that extra breathing room. And it's part of why I support meaningful tax cuts, long-lasting tax cuts for the middle class, for our small businesses. I also support things like child care tax credit, because I think that that's the kind of thing that can go a long way to delivering relief to working families on I mean, I think we need to be making sure that we're investing in and strengthening our education system. These are ways that we can strengthen our communities, and certainly we have to be doing things that are going to reflect the priorities of our communities.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've talked about this just a little bit, but what would you propose, if anything, to provide further relief to Kansas businesses that have been impacted by COVID-19, and that would encourage recovery and promote economic growth?
One of the things that I keep thinking about as we're looking at another package. It's being negotiated right now, and even though a lot of small businesses in Kansas secured the small business administration's loan and emergency relief program funding to help keep folks afloat, to help keep businesses afloat. And I also know that some businesses are still struggling to access those vital programs. It's just a reminder that and a driver for me to continue to push for small businesses and working families to have access to the tools that they need to navigate these challenging times. That means making sure that as we look at the Paycheck Protection Program, the EIDL programs, that we're first of all ensuring that relief is getting actually to our small businesses. I think that we need to also be thinking about our first responders, our school teachers. We have to make sure that we're protecting everybody from the devastating impacts, and that includes the devastating cuts. We have to, I am of the opinion, and I think this is the best path forward, that we support our small businesses, that we support our state and local governments, that we ensure that we can keep people at work to avoid those painful cuts, to things like public schools and fire departments.
I want to jump to a couple of international issues and sort of get your thoughts on international trade and tariffs.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were going to.
Oh, sorry.
No, yeah, no, that's good. One of the reasons I'm glad you asked about this, because it does feel like, for a while we were in the middle of trying to figure out what we were going to do with the USMCA. And I know that a lot of folks like myself recognize that the importance of the Kansas 3rd District in our country's trade and infrastructure is, I just don't think that we can overstate the importance of our district as it relates to trade, because we're a major trade hub. Our community, along with the entire state of Kansas, really benefits when our country has a strong, fair trade policy. And, I'm going to continue to work on those trade policies. But I can say that at the end of last year, when we got USMCA passed out of the House, the president signed that trade deal. I think that we're going to see a lot of benefit from that for years to come.
And then somewhat related to that is your thoughts on national immigration policy, and specifically, do you support employment-based immigration reforms to assist with workforce shortages?
The first of all, before we get to the more detailed portion of that question, our immigration system is it's broken. I mean, it's unnecessarily complex. It's outdated. We certainly need to have a comprehensive bipartisan immigration reform package come through. We've got to, of course, we need to have secure borders. And we also need to provide a pathway to citizenship for our dreamers. We need to ensure that we treat people fairly and humanely. And to your specific question, I feel like I've learned so much about the impact that the immigration system is having on our businesses in our state, in our district, when We're talking about H-1B, H-2B visas. These are things that impact, of course, seasonal work, of course, our tech sector, and these areas are vibrant in our community. And I think we have to make sure that those systems are fair. I've supported pieces of legislation that would help improve both of those systems. And I think that going forward, my hope is that we're able to continue to build support on just reshaping and getting our immigration system to a place where it's fair.
I want to bring us back to the domestic front and a couple of issues you've touched on lightly already. And the first one is, what are your thoughts about long-term funding solutions for our transportation infrastructure?
Infrastructure and transportation is my favorite thing to talk about. So I'm glad we're going to get to talk about it. First of all, I know I've already said this. Our region, our area is vital to our country's transportation and infrastructure system. We're such a huge hub, whether we're talking about intermodal, whether we're talking about rail or the Kansas and Missouri meeting in our district. I think that we have to be investing in the Midwest, and particularly in our district, if we're going to have a thriving transportation and infrastructure system. So that, I think, I was going to say it goes without saying, but I love to talk about how important our district is, and I'm happy to serve on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee to be able to constantly make sure to remind folks how important our district is and how necessary the investments are. And the other thing I think is really important for folks to know is that this is one of the places where we consistently see bipartisan work, bipartisan action, folks coming together, having the conversations about really addressing some of the biggest needs. We have to make sure that we're investing in infrastructure projects, because we know that infrastructure projects are consistently evaluated as one of the best returns on government investment. Jobs, getting to jobs, making sure that we're developing things like public-private partnerships. I'm supportive of an infrastructure bank. These are the ways that we can get to a thriving economy, particularly as we're seeing the devastating impacts of the coronavirus. When we come on the other side of this thing, and at some point we will be on the other side of the pandemic, those investments in infrastructure are going to help us in our economic recovery going forward.
Great, thank you. Last policy question I have for you is about healthcare, and what do you think the federal government's role should be in our healthcare system? This has been probably the number one topic since I started running for office that I've heard about. It weighs on so many people's minds because, especially here, access to affordable quality healthcare is something we all should expect and should be a right in our country. And literally right now, we've got too many folks in Kansas, certainly in the 3rd District, who are just struggling to keep up with the rising costs of healthcare, access to healthcare, prescription drugs. These issues just literally impact so many of us. And, I hear consistently from folks about, from moms who can't afford their children's insulin, people who are concerned that they're going to go bankrupt because they or a loved one was diagnosed with cancer. Nobody should have to face those kinds of issues. And I continue to fight to make sure that quality, affordable health care is something that we're incentivizing, promoting, and ensuring people have, particularly as it relates to protecting people who have pre-existing conditions,
You know, it was just last week, we passed a landmark bill that would stabilize and improve the Affordable Care Act, and reduce the cost of prescription drugs, and actually help states like Kansas expand Medicaid, which would bring some of those dollars that we're sending to DC back to Kansas, in the way that they should be.
Well, the last question I have for you today is, what do you think distinguishes you most from your opponents in the race?
You know, that's a really, I feel like that's a really good question for folks to be thinking about, because this is an important decision, and why I'm so glad that you all put up the information for people to have easy access to, because you know, I grew up, I mentioned this earlier, I love to highlight my mom. You know, I was raised by a single mom who served in the Army for 20 years. And she raised my brothers and I by herself. And I think getting to see, first of all, what public service looks like from a very young age, it shaped how I approach things. And I have seen firsthand how important it is to make sure that people have access to opportunities, making sure that people, you know, my mom worked really hard to make sure that my brothers and I have the opportunities that so many parents want for their children. And I had the opportunity to go to some awesome public schools. I graduated from Leavenworth High School. I've seen firsthand how important public education is. I started off at Johnson County Community College with an associate's degree there. I worked my way through college, and I feel like I got an amazing foundation that led me to Cornell Law School. You know, I think that these are the things that are really important for us to keep in mind. And as an elected, and as somebody who has been working so hard to make sure that other people have those kind of opportunities, I also recognize that I have to listen to people, and being able to talk to so many people in our district, in our communities, who want the system to be fair. They want to know that their voice is being heard by their elected officials, and not just at the federal level, at the state level as well. And to know that somebody is out here in DC making sure that the issues that are important to us, whether it's healthcare, infrastructure, addressing the coronavirus pandemic, that there is no reality in which I am not outworking so many people, and even some of my colleagues. I'm out here fighting every single day to make sure that we're trying to bring down prescription drug costs, because I cannot fathom how we don't make sure that mom can afford insulin for her daughter, you know, and how we don't make sure, we have to make sure our small businesses are taken care of. We're talking about the backbone of our economy, you know, and especially for the 3rd District with our vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem. These are the things that are so important. And, you know, it's invigorating to be able to share all of that with the people out here in DC, and make sure that they know how important our district is to the economy of the entire country.
Well, that's it. For the questions that we have, I want to give you a couple of minutes to, close with anything you'd like to add to make sure that people know everything you want them to know about yourself.
Yeah. I think the last thing I would say is just, we're in what feels like one of the most uncertain times, probably in a lot of folks' lifetime, certainly in my lifetime. And the thing that makes me feel optimistic about the time that we're in right now is the level of engagement and movement that we're seeing from folks. The number of, I mean, I've talked to a bunch of small businesses in our district who are really on the front lines of trying to help make sure that people have the personal protective equipment, that people have the sanitizers and all the things that folks need to stay healthy and safe. And then seeing people just come together as a community to navigate this crisis that we're in, the health crisis that we're in. I just think we have an amazing community that's coming together, and we're going to get on the other side of this pandemic by supporting each other and being there for each other. And I get to see that all across our community every single day with the work that I'm doing. And so really my closing is just to say thank you to all the folks who are just doing that hard work right now, because it's so necessary, it's so important, and I have a lot of gratitude for our community.
Well, we certainly appreciate your service to the district, and we greatly appreciate your time this morning. And let me close by reminding everyone that advance voting is going on right now as we speak. And primary election day is Tuesday, August 4th, and the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we certainly encourage everyone to get out and vote.